Yeah, I mean, when I was in the Army and I was tattooing, the only reason I was tattooing is because I really like to do art. And I remember I was hanging out with this guy named Carlos. He had just gotten out of prison, and he had his little ghetto gun and stuff. And I would hang out at his house and just draw while he was doing tattoos, and we would draw together. And eventually one day he's like, hey, you want to do a tattoo? I was like, fuck yeah, I'll do a tattoo. So he taught me how to make a little ghetto gun, and I did my first tattoo. And in my mind, back then, I was just trying to do as much art as I could, any way I could. If you had given me a blowtorch and been like, you know, burn the side of this building and make it into a piece of art, I'd be like, oh, sure, I'll try. And so anyways, I did the first tattoo, and because I was in the Army, you know, that guy went back and he showed everybody the tattoo, and everybody's like, oh, shit, fucking how much you pay for that? And I'm like, free. Yeah. You know?
I need everyone's attention.
Attention!
There's this new company I want to tell you guys about. It's called
Tay2.
Just when you thought I was about to hit you with Tay1.
We hit you with Tay2, dog.
That's right. It's a new aftercare company. They make a variety of products. Some would say all your aftercare needs. First, the adhesive healing bandage. Show them what we got, Alex.
Next.
Show them, no. Show them the adhesive.
This is the adhesive healing bandage.
Pretty sick. What's it for, Alex?
Adhesive healing.
Secondly, we have the foam healing soap. What do you think, Alex?
Wow, I feel so clean now.
Nice. We have this pen thing. Moisturizer spray that helps with
itching, infection,
swelling, and redness. Maybe you like spraying things.
Boy, oh boy, do I feel moisturized.
Then this is the product for you. With this quality of product, it's probably crazy expensive.
Gee, Willikers, this is a lot of money.
Says the poor. But with our discount code, Unemployable, you can get 15% off all these products right now.
Say what?
Have you guys heard about BOOKEDIN? Well, let me tell you. BOOKEDIN gives you your time back, allows you to focus on your clients and not your schedule. Also allows you to manage your time better. The app is very reliable, secure, and well-maintained. No clunkiness or glitchy settings. It gives you peace of mind knowing your business and clients are in good hands. Reduces no-shows. Sends multiple emails and text reminders. I hate when my clients don't show up on time. Clients can even confirm their appointment via email or text, which saves me so much time. I don't have to call people to confirm if they're coming. No download or login required. Love that. Many online booking services force your clients to download an app and create a client login and password. Lame. They make it super easy for clients to book an appointment. 2 clicks and you're done. BOOKEDIN is super easy to set up. It literally takes 10 minutes to get up and running and start taking online appointments. I bet it would only take me 8 minutes, dog. Work-life balance. You are busy and it's hard to balance everything between your various calendars, clients, just life in general. It's hard to manage everything effectively all the time. It's easy to forget to schedule personal things, and this causes unneeded stress. Hate unneeded stress. BOOKEDIN syncs with pretty much all calendars and automatically blocks off time. If you have something in your other calendars, it really helps work-life balance. It makes it much easier to manage your life. For me, this is an amazing tool. I do not like wasting time. I want peace of mind. I don't want double bookings. I want something that takes care of all that for me. BOOKEDIN is the place. And now if you use code Casal, you get 75% off for 3 months. Check it out. Do you guys know about Kingpin Tattoo Supply? I don't know about you, but I'm ordering products every week from this company, that company. I got 1 million boxes coming. I don't want to deal with any of that. This place is a one-stop shop. I do not go anywhere else. I go to Kingpin. I order all my things. It comes in one box. I have everything I need to tattoo. It is the best. This is where you guys need to go. I can do you one better. If you use code CAMSUCKS, you get 20% off. There you go. What more do you need? Go there now. Bye. Welcome to the Unemployable Podcast. This morning we have 2 exceptional guests, Jesse Smith. Joe Casal.
What's up?
Welcome, guys.
Good to be here.
Good
Sorry,
to be
buddy.
here.
Didn't mean to step over you. Let's start
Good
off
to be
on the
here.
wrong foot already.
Thanks for inviting me on, John.
Bullshit.
So we have you in town, Joe, resident artist. You guys are friends. You guys know each other, correct?
That's correct.
How do you guys know each other?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I was doing guest spots at Frank Linatra's shop, and that's how we met, right?
More specifically, it was your first season of Ink Master.
Was it?
There was like a party in Miami, in Wynwood.
Oh yeah, the Tattoo Babies. It was a viewing party. Yeah.
And when we went down there, Frank was like, "You guys want to go meet Jesse Smith?" And we were like, "Fuck yeah, we do."
Yeah.
Who the fuck is
Yeah.
that?
I knew who you were. And we went down there, and like Travis and Scott Olive were working on a wall
Oh,
at the time.
yeah.
So we went and checked that out. And then we went to the little bar where the thing was happening and stuff, and got introduced to you and a few of the other people that were there and stuff. So
How long ago was this?
2012. Yeah,
Nice.
a while ago. Damn.
And you were obviously at Into the Woods.
I had just started.
Nice.
Into the Woods had just opened. You know what I mean? So it was probably our, first 3-4 months in operation at that time. So yeah, it was all brand new. You know what I mean?
So you just started. You're already getting benefits. You're like, I get to go meet Jesse Smith.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, and I had come from shops where that wasn't even a possibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like now I felt like I was like, this is the shit. This is like the real deal now. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so
That's something that Frank's really good at. He's really good at bringing groups of people together and sharing everything that he has. I mean, he's always been very
I always
generous
thought
with
that was the best part of that shop of working there was the like they would put on events where they would gather, like they had the 2 of a kind thing where they would bring in all these artists or epic guest spots, and they would have like 10 like heavy hitters all come and guest spot at the same time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which was amazing, like a learning opportunity as like, someone just trying to break in and, be in the same room with these people and stuff like that and learn from them and pick up little tips and tricks. I mean, it was hugely valuable in my career.
Yeah. And then were you down to visit? Were you were doing a wall?
Yeah, we were here for Art Basel.
Cool.
And we did a viewing party, and then we were painting a mural. It was, me, Scott Olive, Travis, and then a couple of my graffiti friends down here. Nice. And then this guy named Tico, and I forget the other guy's name. But yeah, we were down there painting a wall at Basel, and then I think I also was doing like a scratch board with Tattoo Baby at the time.
Cool.
Which was pretty fun. I remember we were in the middle of Art Basel, and Ink Master had already been airing. And we got this 8-foot by 4-foot like scratch board, and we're scratching and we're doing this stuff. And people kept coming up to me like, "Oh my God, are you Jesse Smith from Ink Master?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then nobody recognized Tattoo Baby because Tattoo Baby was like dressed down, like
right.
she wasn't all wearing leopard
all
print.
dolled up,
in high heels and stuff. And I'd be like, "Yeah, it's Tattoo Baby." Like, "Oh shit, Tattoo Baby." But I just thought it was so funny because people would recognize me before they recognized her in that scenario because she had her hair in a little bun and all that stuff.
She was hiding out.
Yeah.
Everyday fit kind of thing. Right?
And this was the first time you did an Ink Master?
Yeah, it was season 2 of Ink Master, and it was pretty massive back then.
Yeah,
I mean, it's still a big show, but I think back then it was so new, and it was like they were still trying to figure things out.
Sure.
So
yeah, we've heard that a couple times that like especially in the beginning with Ink Master because it was new, like not only a new show but kind of a new concept.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're gonna put this on TV. The effects from it were kind of wild. You know?
Yeah, it was big. It was I couldn't go anywhere without getting recognized.
Yeah.
Which was it was really humbling, but also a little annoying in some cases. Like,
sure.
Sitting there like eating in the middle of a restaurant, and some obnoxious guy would be like, "Oh my God!" And he's like making this big deal out of the fact that you're eating there.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, man, I guess I kind of get if I was like Kanye West or Eminem or something, I'd be like super annoyed by it. It's happening every day. But yeah, it was different. And then I went back on season 7. So the difference between season 2 and season 7 was pretty substantial. Like the drama was relatively low on season 2, and then by season 7, the producers had figured out how to crank things down and make it a lot more difficult for you to do a good tattoo.
Was that tough, like having the expectation of season 2 going back on and having it be different?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was. It was, when I had gone on season 2, they would give you all night to draw. It was up to you. You had to be up at 8 o'clock to go draw, to do the tattoo. But you could have drawn all the way till 8 o'clock. Yeah. Whereas in season 7, they basically gave you 3 hours to eat lunch, do a consultation, get your station set up, and do the drawing. Damn. And it was like, oh shit, we got to get moving here, you know. Pressure. And then, you would start at 8 o'clock in the morning. You do, all the consultation, all that stuff, and then get started tattooing, and you wouldn't finish until like, I think it was like 8 to 8 every day we were filming. So
that's some pressure right there.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just gonna freehand it.
Just real quick.
Yeah, lots of.
It's not like a lot of people are gonna see.
Yeah, that was probably one of the worst feelings I ever had. I did excuse me. I did a really horrible portrait on there on season 2, and I knew it was horrible like way before I finished it. And I just inside, I was just like, I just wanted to crawl into a corner and cry. But I was like, I got cameras in my face. I can't do that.
Because, I mean, I'm sure we know what it's like to do a tattoo we're not happy with. Yeah. And that's just like in the shop.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
And you
with
just
one
go
person
home,
looking over your shoulder, right? Like,
you go home, you tell your wife, you're like, I failed today. And then you crawl in your bed, you know?
And you feel bad for like maybe like a week.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man, I just don't feel good. But then with the TV show, you did the tattoo, you don't feel good then, and then it's going to air in 2 months.
It's immortalized. Like, right? It's there
and
forever.
They do YouTube
you can pull
highlights
it up anytime you want.
Yeah, now there's YouTube videos, worst tattoos on.
Have you ever been a thumbnail?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dude, I think one of the most impressive things, though, that you did with that whole thing was kind of like take that one-trick pony moniker. You know what I mean? And make it your fucking brand, which I thought was genius. You know what I mean? Like, you had your style. Everybody knew you for it. Nobody's asking you for black and gray portraits and stuff like that, so you just fucking ran with it, bro.
Yeah, but we all know. I mean, we know that, when we first, everybody, maybe not today, but back in the days, when everybody started out, they would do everything. And then they would slowly start fine-tuning into a style that they wanted to do. So it wasn't like I hadn't done it. I just hadn't done it for a long time.
Sure, yeah.
And I think I remember one of my friends that I was working with at the time was like, dude, maybe you should like brush up on black and gray portraits. I'm like, man, I got it. I've done this, man. It was like, they taught it in art school. We did portraits all the time. And but the crazy thing is I didn't account for how much everything had changed. Like back when I was doing black and gray portraits, it was more of like a
close enough, right? Like it didn't have to be.
Oh, I can see it. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I feel like those portraits that were being done in like the early '90s and stuff were like they were more resemblance than like photorealistic. You know what I mean? Until you started seeing guys like Nico and those guys who were really just like
taking it to the next level. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing too is the tools. I mean, back then we were using steel grips. Yep. Tips, we were using, whatever needles we were making them at the time, and then we were using coil machines. And so back then the application was more of like a full saturation of black and gray and just kind of dropping your values. Whereas now it's more of a grazing technique. I mean, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
More black and gray stuff. It's more of a grazing technique, and I hadn't learned that. I had done the full saturation type. So when you do that, everything looks really dark and everything looks very kind of overworked. And then, when it heals, that portrait came back and it was like lighter than I wanted it to be.
Right.
But on the show, they were critiquing me, telling me it was too dark. And I'm like, it's going to lighten up. You guys know this.
So you saw it healed? It looked.
Oh, yeah, I saw it healed. I mean, the big mistake that I made, and I don't know if you guys have even messed with this at all, but there was a time where I did a portrait on this kid's arm, and when I was way back in the days, and his arm was so skinny that it went from a little stocky head to a long skinny head, And so what I did is I kind of like, I squished it a little bit to kind of like, kind of counterbalance the curve, but I squished it a little too much and it just made the chick look chubby. So
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
definitely done that with portraits too. where
Yeah, I
kind
even
of
remember like
manipulate
back
it.
in the day, even like 10 years ago, people telling me to try that. And I remember at the time, I'm like, damn, that's so smart. That makes sense. But it's like, how do you get the correct proportions with
Right.
it?
Yeah.
You
Without
know?
distorting
I guess
it
by
completely.
eye. But even then, it's like with the
doesn't work. Just
with the
trust
stencil
me.
I was using. With the stencil I was using, like it's not like you can see the image with the stencil. Maybe with the stencil printer, you print the whole thing out, but that's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, I mean, and now you have
especially on
like
TV.
with these, yeah, right. But now you have these apps in like Procreate or whatever,
Yeah.
where you can actually 3D model it onto like,
True.
you know what I mean, like a 3-dimensional image and see exactly how it's going to wrap and everything like that, which is huge. You know what I mean? That's a big. That's
What
a
you can't
nice
dictate
tool.
for is how big that particular human is.
Right.
True.
You're doing it on a model that some buff model dude.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
guy's like a little scrawny, skinny dude. Or
Yeah,
something.
you need to get
we
the
have
body
to be
types.
close though to like scanning someone's arm.
Yeah,
And
it's
like-
right around the corner.
Yeah.
And when I did the portrait on season 7, I made sure I was like, listen, this is going on a shoulder blade.
Yeah.
There's no manipulation at all.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna make sure this one has.
Did you get to pick the location, or they chose like the client or whatever?
I mean, when you're on that show, these guys, that these guys are getting free tattoos.
Right.
You know that they're put there to give you
A hard time.
Yeah. And, you kind of crank down a little bit in the direction you want to go because you're just like, listen, this is not.
It's not about you, bro.
I mean, obviously you want them to have a good tattoo, but when someone comes in there and they're really trying to pull, call the shots, you're just like, what are you talking about? You're on TV getting a free tattoo. Like,
Yeah.
What do you mean you want to have it in this perfect place in this perfect certain way? It's like, what's up. You want a free tattoo? You better shut the fuck up.
Can you like be like stern with them?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you treat them just as not that I treat all my clients this way, but you treat them the way you would treat any client. If you felt like there was a better place for that tattoo or
Sure.
a better way to do it, you try to guide them in that direction.
But are they like told to go against that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're fighting, and that's what happens in season 2. It was like, it was like a normal day. I'm hanging out with a bunch of people. We're all getting along. We're all drawing. Of course, that doesn't make great TV. Season 7, it's like every canvas is fighting you.
Right.
Every contestant is fighting you because they think that you said something that you didn't say because the producers told them that you said that.
Right.
And then the producers are telling you that they're saying stuff about you. And it's like, next thing you know, you're in this scenario where you don't even know who your enemies or your friends are. And it's a pretty interesting situation.
I've heard that from multiple people that have been on that show.
Yeah.
How does that actually go down? Do they like pull you guys aside? Are you in a separate room? Is it like a,
So those places where they have them interviewing. So,
Right,
we'll all be working on a thing and they'll be like, hey, what'd you think about working with Joe? And I'm like, oh man, Joe was great. They go and tell you like, oh, Jesse said that Joe sucked. Joe fucked this thing up. Or it'll be like little teeny things like, I don't know. I remember me and Sausage were working on a collabo together and I was like, I was like, Sausage really isn't feeling this direction we're trying to go. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, so you're talking shit about Sausage, huh? And I'm like, no, I'm not talking shit. I'm just talking. And then, they've got the other contestants being like, yeah, you were talking shit about Sausage. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, and then the thing about season 7 is they brought you in later. So people had already established alliances. They had already become friends. And you coming in later was the enemy,
right,
yeah.
surprise guest kind of thing or whatever? Yeah.
And so these two that have an alliance are like, okay, we got to get Jesse out of here. We're fucking,
Right.
And then, of
So
course,
talking shit about sausage.
yeah, exactly. And then they put Clean on you, and then fucking Clean just goes at you for random reasons. You don't even know what the fuck's going on. I remember what going on in season 7, and Clean and Christian were coming at me. Like, they sat me down, first interview, they sat me down with Clean and Christian, and they were like, so guys, what do you think about what happened? And I'm like, oh, it was cool. And then Clean and Christian are like, oh, you think it was cool? You think our tattoos were fucked up? You think your tattoo was better than ours? And I'm like, what? What the fuck's going on
So
here?
happy to be here.
Yeah. I'm like, good to meet you.
Yeah.
But clean's like perfect for TV. Clean and Christian both are really
for
great
that,
for.
right?
Yeah, they're made for TV.
How long had you been tattooing the first time you went on?
I think I'd been tattooing about 14. No, I think it was maybe 14, 18. Yeah, 14 years. That's what it was. Yeah,
Okay.
because when I went on in 2007, it was 18 years. So
Nice. Fuck yeah. And then how long have you been tattooing total?
I think I'm going on 28 years now.
Nice.
Yeah, in March of this 2025 will be 28 years.
Did it start with an apprenticeship?
No, I mean, there was no way that the tattoo world was going to let me in back in those days. I mean, I wasn't heavily tattooed, and, I was a little hip-hop kid. I just didn't fit the mold of what was happening back then. I tried. I mean, I walked in. I remember going to all the tattoo shops, and I'd show them my portfolio, and they'd be like, like, go work on it some more, and then I'd do it again. So every 6 months I'd go around. It took me 3 times before I finally landed a job, and they were like, yeah, we'll give you a try. And then I remember they were like, we're going to put you through like a 2-week apprenticeship just to kind of get you on your feet because you obviously haven't learned for real. Yeah. And and I remember my boss, they had a new piercer there, and they're like, hey, you wanna let this chick pierce your belly button? I'm like, no, that's gay. Right. And, back when gay it was okay to say.
Yeah. It's okay in this room.
Yeah.
You're safe, buddy.
Nobody's watching. So then right after I said that, the boss like pulled up his shirt and he had his belly button pierced, and I got fired.
And both my nipples.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, I do have a question from T. Cook. He said, Jesse only has 32 posts on his Instagram. Did he have to purge or / consider starting fresh, or did his Insta get hacked?
Yeah, I think it was, I don't know, maybe 6 months or 8 months ago, I just decided to like really clean things up. I feel like Instagram, the way that it's being used is just different now than when I first got in. When I first got in, I would always curate my Instagram and like make it look nice and all that stuff. Then it got to a point where you're just trying to load it up with as much as you can. And then it got to a point where it was like, I felt like when people were seeing your portfolio, it was like a kind of like a hodgepodge of a bunch of shit that you'd done. And it wasn't the best you could present. So I just really tried to filter it down and just say, okay, these are what I'm trying to do. My number was 32. I was like, I'm just going to stick it to 32. Anytime I upload something new that I think's good, then I take away something that I don't think is as good. But there's a few pieces in there I leave in for various reasons. Like the very first piece I have is a squirrel tattoo and an acorn. And that was the interesting thing about that piece. So I've been on Instagram before Facebook took it over. And the interesting part about that piece is this was prior to me being on Ink Master. I remember I had 12,000 followers. And I remember posting that squirrel, and I got 2,000 likes on it with 12,000 followers. And so then it's like just kind of a reminder of how Instagram used to be back when you posted stuff and everybody saw it. And it was before the feed. You couldn't continuously scroll. You just scrolled through, all your friends had posted, and you're like, cool, I got through all my friends. And then your day was done. That was like your newspaper in the morning.
Right.
And so it just, I don't know. I kind of quit playing the game, I guess, per se, is, I'm focusing on just really trying to like do good IRL stuff and then just show the world via Instagram whenever it's done. Not so much, I'm just not too good at dancing and lip syncing. So I just kind of jumped off that horse.
Fair enough.
Are you tired of using ink bottles that are spelled correctly? Do you find yourself texting during ad reads for companies? Well, I do, and that's why I use Allegory Black. Are you tired of your black arms looking blue? Do you suck at tattooing and you want to get better? Use Allegory Black. Allegory has normal black and ultra black. Just when you thought it couldn't get any darker, they put out ultra black. Use Allegory ink. It's the best ink on the planet. Go to allegoryink.com and use discount code unemployable for 20% off. I know, it's crazy. It's so much money. You really should pay full price, but we have a discount code. Right, Alex?
That's right.
Kind of going back to the basics. I mean, I went through this crazy roller coaster ride where, I started out and it was always my intention to have my artwork stand in front of my personality, in front of my face, all that stuff. And then of course, and I was, I guess, relatively famous in the tattoo world prior to being on Ink Master. I had a substantial wait list, and, I was doing really good on all the metrics back then, magazines and stuff like that. And then, went on the TV show. All of a sudden my face was in front of my tattoos, and it was all personality and getting out there and stuff. And then, now I kind of want to take a couple steps back. I prefer, not to be in the limelight as much and more just grinding. It gets in the way, when you're constantly trying to be, a personality, it gets in the way of the art. And I always have to kind of take a couple steps back and say, okay, why am I here in the first place? I've heard a lot of artists get very disenchanted with the way that things are going. And I'm like, well, why'd you start doing art in the first place? You started doing art because you loved art. Just take a couple steps back and focus on loving art again, because that's the most important thing. The likes, the follows, the attention, all that stuff. It's not that is not what got you where you are today. That's the extra stuff,
Yeah.
So that's what I've been trying to do, is just kind of take steps back. I mean, as I was talking to you earlier about this tattoo convention, it's like all day, every day, working on the tattoo convention, drawing, working on the tattoo shop. I've got this cool little side world thing that I'm working on. It's called Carcaeus. It's just like this little world where I have my critters. I got maps and stories and all that stuff. So I've just got so much, and I got my kid, he's 4 now. So I've got so many things in IRL world to deal with, and eventually I have tons of things I could post if I wanted to play that game again. But right now I'm just trying to focus on handling the IRL world and then tightening things back up. So,
yeah. So, man, I want to talk about all of that, but really quick. So when you came into the industry and you're talking about the tattoo world wouldn't accept you, was it more for your style or your art, or both?
All the above. I mean, I was when I first got into the tattoo world, I was actually in the Army. So I was tattooing my friends out of the barracks and stuff like that. And, and I wasn't even doing it because I wanted to be a tattoo artist. I was doing it because I just loved doing art. So I was drawing caricatures at Busch Gardens. I was doing graffiti, just doing art on all levels. And, I went into tattoo shops to try to ask. Now it sounds stupid, but I'd go in and I'd ask if I could buy some ink and some needles. And, of course, they'd shout me out the door. Right. And I remember having my flash sheets, and I would go and try to sell my flash sheets, and they would just laugh at it. The interesting thing is I saw Zeke Owens down in, I think it was Jacksonville, North Carolina, I think. Anyways, I was down there, and I walked into Zeke Owens' shop, and I showed him my flash, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to buy this to make everything on the wall look better. I said, I don't care, I got I think I got my $60, and I was out.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was such an interesting thing that he was buying it to make everything else look better. But, it was back in those David Bolt days. You know who that is?
Yeah, the butterflies.
He was a great artist, and he would do this airbrush stuff. But anyways, all his flash had colored backgrounds. At that point, no flash had colored backgrounds. It was all white backgrounds. Sure. So, of course, I wanted my flash to have colored backgrounds as well, which really fucked up the cohesion of a shop, because you'd have all this white shit, and then there'd be a block of color in the corner. So a lot of people didn't want my flash on their walls, aside from the fact that I had, rabbits with fucking spray can dicks and stuff, little blue balls and, just real abstract shit. But
And then when you were going around to these shops, was the goal to become a tattoo artist and have it as a career? Or were you not even thinking that far ahead?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in the Army and I was tattooing, the only reason I was tattooing is because I really like to do art. And I remember I was hanging out with this guy named Carlos. He had just gotten out of prison, and he had his little ghetto gun and stuff. And I would hang out at his house and just draw while he was doing tattoos, and we would draw together. And eventually one day he's like, hey, you want to do a tattoo? I was like, fuck yeah, I'll do a tattoo. Yeah. So he taught me how to make a little ghetto gun, and I did my first tattoo. And in my mind, back then, I was just trying to do as much art as I could, any way I could. If you had given me a blowtorch and been like, burn the side of this building and make it into a piece of art, I'd be like, oh, sure, I'll try. And so anyways, I did the first tattoo. And because I was in the Army, that guy went back and he showed everybody the tattoo. And everybody's like, oh, shit, fucking how much you pay for that? And I'm like, free.
Yeah.
So,
what was the machine made out of, or the ghetto gun?
So it was made out of a Walkman motor, a ballpoint pen, the inside. I used a sewing needle. I would always change the needles. And
Safety first.
Safety first. Meanwhile, I'm using the same ink cap. I'm scrubbing tubes in my fucking sink and eating a sub afterwards. But anyways, it was a toothbrush. Took a toothbrush and kind of melted it, so it was like the base.
Right.
And then we had like a little eraser for the offset of the motor to the pen and the inside of the pen. What else?
Tube.
Did we use? The tube.
Yeah.
And then we used a lot of electrical tape and some acrylic. And
Yeah,
it was a mess. I mean, I still have the machine, and I believe it probably has.
You still have it?
Yeah, it's like ground zero for fucking monkeypox. Fucking every time I see
Keeping
it,
a glass display case.
yeah,
Yeah, last
The
time we
early
opened
days.
it, COVID happened.
Exactly.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I still have it. It's pretty cool. I tried to get it bronzed one time. I thought it'd be cool to have it.
That would be cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't planning on being a tattoo artist. And then it was just like, as soon as people found out I was doing free tattoos, they would just line it up at the door. And I mean, I remember them tattoos. There's tattoos. I did a 3/4 sleeve of tribal with one needle.
Damn.
I tattooed for 17 hours straight. And I called the dude the other day, and that tattoo's still healing. It was like the fucking scab on
This
that
part
thing.
was still peeling over here.
It was crazy, dude. I was gonna quit
Keep rubbing that
tattooing
lotion
after
on
that.
it. Yeah.
It was like just scar.
Yeah.
The dude looked like he got burned.
And then at the time, like as you're doing these tattoos, is the end result as rewarding as the other forms of art you were doing? Where did it compare?
Yeah, I just enjoy doing art, man. I've just always been an artist through and through, and anytime I could figure out how to make marks with anything, it was the same game, just with a different medium, yeah. And so it didn't matter. It's the same thing now. If I go and paint a mural, I will say this: if I'm tattooing all the time, then it does get kind of redundant as far as like, okay, you're applying the same kind of way. And then I go paint a mural or paint a skateboard or something like that, and it feels like you're flexing a different muscle because you are doing the application process a little bit different. You're with spray paint, you're all like opaque. Tattooing, you got a little bit of transparency, a little bit opaque. You do oil paint, you got a lot of transparency options. So the different mediums, I think, bring out different ways of thinking, and I feel like I learn different things in those processes.
Yeah.
And then with painting a mural, it's just like full arm swings. You're working out muscles you haven't worked out before. Your little finger muscle is like dying.
Do you still prefer traditional media to like digital and stuff? Or
I hate to say it. Like, I really did not want to make the jump to digital because I was afraid that it was going to like essentially knock out all my sketchbooks and stuff like that. And it absolutely did. Like, I don't sketch in sketchbooks hardly at all anymore. Yeah. I have a little sketchbook that I have by the on the end table by the TV. So if I'm watching TV, I'll sketch in there. But yeah, I used to fill sketchbooks like 24/7. I've got stacks of sketchbooks just full of stuff. I can flip through and I can tell you where I was when I was doing those sketches. And you don't get that with digital. But I do feel like as far as what I can do digitally, I can't do as well and as quickly if I was doing like a traditional painting or something like that, or even a tattoo. I'm sure you guys have done a color study and you look at it and you're like, the color study on the digital iPad looks way better than the actual tattoo.
Jesse, can you move your mic a little closer to you?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Thank you, my dude.
yeah, there's definitely a learning curve with that. I remember in the early days of like the iPad coming out, and I was resistant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I don't know, man. I like
This isn't
drawing
what
on
I signed up
paper.
for.
Yeah. But then once I started using it, and I started, like, I had, Frank showed me little tricks here and there and stuff like that, and just how much easier it was to like put a piece together for, you know, a client and stuff like that, as opposed to like going through reams of paper and then like, oh, I like this part of it, but not this part. So now I got to break out some tracing paper. I got to trace this part of it and then like adjust. And now you can just, you know, undo, put it on a separate layer, move it around. It's, you know, it's.
And you're
it's
old.
definitely
You've been
changed the
tattooing
game.
for a while. Like,
Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
He still uses the first iPad.
I feel like that's always getting pointed out on this fucking podcast. Yeah, I am old. No, but yeah, I think we started around the same time. I did my apprenticeship in like '96, and story was very similar. I went around to a few tattoo shops, local, upstate New York kind of thing, and same thing. Got laughed out of every single one. And like, yeah, I started kind of sketching and drawing stuff for my friends who were going to a local guy and getting tattooed. And then that guy noticed the drawings and was like, who's drawing these for you guys? And he asked to meet me. I went. He let me tattoo some of my dumbass friends who were dumb enough to let me
Idiots.
mess around on them. And yeah, and then another guy saw me doing it, and then he offered me the apprenticeship. And it was like, you know, it was pretty old school. You know, it was scrubbing tubes and making needles and doing all that stuff that none of us do anymore. But like the process, I had kind of a longer route because I'm assuming that once you started, you just stuck with it, right?
yeah.
I actually apprenticed, kind of tattooed for about 1.5 to 2 years, and then had to stop and went into construction. I started building elevators, but I was still kind of keeping up with it, you know, tattooing out of my house and, you know, doing things like that, you know, friends, family, and whatever. And it wasn't until I moved down here in 2007 that I came back to tattooing full time.
That's when you work with Frank?
No, I didn't start with Frank until 2012, so I was already down here for a while. I worked at 2 other shops. I started at the Hard Rock, and which was really like going back into like that kind of street shop thing, but at like this ridiculous, like kind of higher level as far as the amount of foot traffic that was coming through, because it's in a, you know, like the entertainment area of the casino. And, you know, there's like nightclubs and restaurants and people just coming through, and like you're in this glass box and everybody's just watching you and all that stuff, you know what I mean? But it wasn't, there was no focus on like quality or, you know, any of that. It was just like, all right, these guys are here. They all want, you know,
You're up.
tribal, or they want, you know, a spider or whatever the hell it was, you know what I mean? And that was it. You know?
How late did it stay open?
As late as they needed to, like till the
How
last
long can you
person
stay
left.
awake?
Yeah. I mean, there were nights we got out of there at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Mickey took me to that shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. He was trying to get involved at some capacity.
Yeah, I don't know. I think after I had left there, he had been going there or something like that. But those guys shut down a few years ago. But then from there, I went to South Beach. It was kind of more of the same. You know what I mean? Different environment, but very similar. You still had like a lot of tourism and stuff like that coming through. But it wasn't until 2012 when I kind of like linked up with Frank and Krista. They had the little shop, the Eternal, like there was like
Oh, I remember.
the side of a barber shop.
They were throwing this amazing tattoo convention, and then they asked me to do a guest spot, and I went there. And I'm like, I'm tattooing out of a
Fucking
freaking
closet, bro.
urinal and fucking the side of a.
I couldn't believe it because when I went, like I had found them, I think it was through Facebook or something, because I had been like I had seen their art and I was commenting on stuff, and like Krista and I actually started going back and forth, and she was like, I like your artwork. I was like, I like yours. And she was like, we're opening a shop if you want to come by, and, you know, we're looking for artists. So I went to go interview with them. And I went to the place, and it's like, this is a barber shop. Like, where's the... And then off to the side, it was like literally, like you could touch both walls. Which, like,
You could. I was.
But yeah, it was like 3 or 4 stations, like one right in front of the other, and like a little like strip to walk through, and that was it, man. I was like, this is where you guys fucking tattoo? Like
The barber shop was like 4 times the size of the.
yeah. And I was like starting to question it, like, did I come to the right place?
Yeah.
Fuck. You know. But the interview went well, and like, you know, the rest is history. They opened Into the Woods that year, and you know, it was a big, beautiful beautiful shop with an art gallery, and they had all these like, you know, art shows and events and things like that, and that's where I got to meet Jesse, and I met like guys like Dave Koenig and Stefano and all these, you know, amazing artists and stuff. So it took a while to get there, you know what I mean? But once I got there, you know, like it kind of moved a lot faster, you know what I mean? Because I started getting introduced to all these people that were not only names in the industry, but they were kind of like innovating, you know, they were changing the game. Like guys like you and Frank and stuff were like the whole like new school thing. Like I watched that whole thing kind of happen. You know what I mean? Like before that, you know, you guys had like, you know, Joe and Jimmy Litwalk and those guys that were doing like new school. And then you guys were taking it to a different place, you know, like it became like illustrative, you know, where these guys were telling stories with their pieces. Like, you know, there was full backgrounds and like depth and, you know, forced perspective and, you know, all that stuff. And like, I'm sitting there trying to just soak it all in. Like, holy shit. You know what I mean?
Well, even like, us at Fat Mermaid, like with Phil, Skinny, Scott, they all were obsessed with that style and thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was the young kid, like joining that group,
right?
You know, and your name would come up all the time, you know, and a couple others, and they were all trying to do that style.
Yeah,
they were trying to get those highlights on the cupcakes. They were trying to get the weird fucking, you know, animals, and I think even in your captions, like there's like a little bit of the story behind it, right? And then they were doing that. You know, not only did they want to show me the drawing, they wanted to tell me the story behind the drawing. And to me, that was so new. I'm like, yeah, this is just... Because I was doing graffiti at the time. I'm like, this is my word. That's it. There's nothing behind it. They're like, this is from a far land. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, there was whole, like he said, the Carcass thing. Like, it's a whole world. You know what I mean? There's different lands, and, like, different artists have... like they own property in those lands and stuff, so they have like their little creatures.
Explain this. Start off.
I mean, I'm just paraphrasing. I mean, this is the guy to.
I want to hear you say it.
I mean, like I saw the whole thing happen. Like Frank was heavily involved in it.
Right.
You know, so like
worlds were being created.
Right. So you know, Frank has his little continent or island or wherever where he has his little creatures living, and then Jesse's got. But he's telling it from the perspective of like an explorer who's going through and like discovering, you know how like Darwin went to like the Galapagos and was writing down like, oh, these fucking iguanas live here and they dive in the water.
I don't
you
know what the fuck that is. Draw it, I guess.
Yeah. But like, it's the same thing. Like, this creature,
cameras.
This creature lives here and it feeds on this creature and it does this and you know, all that shit. You know what I mean? So I thought that was incredible, you know, and I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just sitting here trying to do a fucking decent tattoo, and these guys are creating entire universes and stuff. You know what I mean?
Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's actually really good. So it's shifted a lot. I mean, I think it was in 2009, 2008, something like that. I remember just feeling very disenchanted by tattooing. You know, I'd kind of hit all the mile markers that you could hit in the tattoo world. I had all the magazines, all the magazine articles, all the trophies, everything I could get at the time I got. And I was just like, where do we go from here? You know, like people would come in. Back then I was doing a lot of squirrels. So everybody would come in, they'd want a squirrel. I want a squirrel tattooing an acorn. I want a squirrel jumping out of a tree, you know, just a lot of squirrels. And I was just getting really kind of bored. And so I remember going to Universal Studios and seeing like, I think it was Dr. Seuss World or something. And I was like, I need to do something like this. And so I went back, and I remember I was working on this massive like bodysuit. It was it took me like 300 hours, and it was on this lady, and it was all blue, and there was like all these critters in there. And back then, it was all about blog posts. So we were doing blog posts, and we were writing about our lives as tattoo artists and stuff. So it was pre-Instagram. I mean, we were doing Instagram, but Instagram wasn't as adopted as it is now. Yeah. And so I remember writing a blog post that was probably like from here to the ceiling if you were going to see it in real life. And it was like every character, their story, why they were where they were, the cool little things about them. And that was the beginning of Carcass for me. It was this place called Killick Falls Lagoon in Carcaeus. And basically, that was the beginning of everything. From that point on, every character I did lived in Carcaeus. And essentially, like, you could get tattooed by me, and you'd have, like, this one rabbit, and he had the squirrel. And either they'd be friends, or they'd fight each other, or whatever. So you'd be connected not only by the fact that you got tattooed by me, but you're also connected by the storyline as well.
Yeah.
And so after I started doing that a little bit, you know, a lot of artists started showing interest. You know, you had Tanane, you had Frank, you had all these guys. And I was like, well, I've got this world called Carcaeus, and it was broken up into 27 different territories. And so I was like, hey, you know, pick a territory, and you can start inhabiting that territory with your guys. And so they picked territories, and they would name them whatever they wanted to name them, and they'd put all these characters. And then, you know, Scott Olive was involved. And basically what we would do is whenever we did collaborations, we would have our worlds kind of collide at some capacity. Yeah. And it just gave a little more depth to, you know, everything. It was like we had a reason for why we were doing it. It's like, oh, this critter is the bad guy, and he's not only hurting these critters or attacking these critters, but he's also attacking these critters. And then these guys are coming in to save, and blah, blah, blah. And it just made everything a lot more fun, you know.
Sure.
And gave us all reasons to collaborate and kind of, you know, work together. And it was really cool. But it ended up kind of falling by the wayside. Everybody had their own speeds and their own ideas. And, you know, when you get a lot of creative people in one space, you know, their ideas aren't going to align, and everybody kind of started branching off in their own directions. But Frank and I are still kind of collaborating at some capacity. We were both doing our NFT thing, which is obviously like a swear word these days, but it's actually a really fun space. It's like it's essentially like a digital art world where you have a platform where people can you know, kind of trade and sell their pieces of the story. So it's really fun. And you know, so Frank's got his project called Battle Bunnies. Mine's called Carcaeus. And they both take place in Carcaeus on this place called Furchets Island. So he's on Furchets Island East, he's on Furchets Island West. I'm on Furchets Island East, and you know, we have like a mountain range in between, and our characters can interact whenever they want to. So it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
It is cool.
So I don't know a lot about that world. What do you
Raids, Shadow Legends.
So when did you start working on this project?
So all this started in 2009. So I've been building this story since 2009.
Okay. So,
but the NFT stuff started probably in 2021.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I started like right when the bottom started falling out of it. And of course, you know, everybody will say, "Oh, it's a scam," and there were tons of scams. Hence the fact that it's not around as much anymore. But it is really good technology, and there's a lot of awesome things that can be done with it. You know, they were moving into a digital world, so being able to have a non-bias verification of ownership in the digital world. So I don't know how much you know about, you know, like cryptocurrency or any of that stuff, but it's all on the blockchain. And essentially what happens is you have these nodes. And so let's just say this is a piece of artwork. It's a node. What it does is it sends a bunch of like really crazy mathematical problems out, tons of them. And all these computers solve those mathematical problems, and they push it back out, and they say this node exists. So there's no way to hack it. You know what I mean? So you can't sit there and hack into like Bank of America and say, okay, I own this nugget of money or whatever. So essentially it's a verification process that can't be hacked. And so because it can't be hacked, essentially that thing is owned by you, and there's no way of like someone faking that it's owned by someone else. So it's just like you holding a piece of artwork in your shop here. You know, obviously people can go out and fake it.
Right.
The cool thing about the blockchain is it says, okay, this was made in 2007. If anything's made past that point, it's a good way to, like, you know, back in the days we would send our stuff to the Library of Congress to get it copyrighted. You know, and doing this, if you put it on the blockchain, you can prove that it was made at this specific time and no one made it before. So anyways, I don't remember why I was going off of that, but yeah, we're doing the NFT thing started in 2021.
Yeah. And then so you have this story that you've been working on it before that. Now you're applying it to the NFT project, and then it's like available now, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I sell all my NFTs on crypto.com.
Right.
So I actually work with crypto.com, and we do a curated drops every, like, probably, I would say we're doing them like every 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Now, and they're very relatively small. Like back in the days, people were pushing $1 million drops every time, and they were very kind of like watered down, I would say, because there was just like 10,000 of them and all this stuff. We're doing drops of like 500 or something like that. And, basically you can own pieces of these stories. And the goal is like the one I'm doing now actually is a massive collaboration where I've done it with a ton of different artists. So I've got, I don't know, Timmy B's in there, Scotty Munster, Marcus McGuire, Josh Woods, Dave Koenig, Scott Olive, lots of artists. I think there's like 65 artists total. And basically, I created this place called Larkin Lake, and all these critters are hanging out at Larkin Lake for this thing called the blooming of the silo fish. And the silo fish are like these mushrooms that, they look like mushrooms, and once a year the caps come off and there's like little tentacles, and it turns into like a jellyfish, and they float through the woods. But anyways, the cool thing is so we've got these like 65 collaborating artists, and what you do is you collect each one of the pieces, and as you collect each piece of each section, we send you a full like stretch canvas print, like a real high quality one.
Oh, wow.
And there's only 100 of them, so we sign them, give them to you, and then this is your way of collecting these canvases. So it's just it's a fun thing, and then you hold on to those pieces, and let's say, how they do like sneakers, you have like aftermarket sales and stuff like that. So you might buy 5 pairs of sneakers, and you're only going to keep one, and you sell the other 5. People will do that with these NFTs. They'll say, okay, I don't know, like the newest drop I have, there's this thing called Tiny Tent, which is like a little tiny tentacle. And that tiny tent is the rarest one. So if you get that, then you hold on to it. You can use that to get your canvas. But then let's say you have an additional one. Well, now you're on aftermarket. So you can get this one and then sell this one to compensate you for half of the canvas that you bought already. And there's a marketplace where you can see the floor price of all these individual characters.
So the utility is to get the canvas?
Yeah, we do that, and we also tie it into the tattoo convention. So anyone that owns any of these NFTs, they get free access into the tattoo convention for life.
Cool.
As long as they hold on to these NFTs, and as long as I'm involved in it. I'm not obviously can't give them access for someone else. But they get that. They get we have a Discord channel, and in there they can get a bunch of things. They can get little stretch canvas prints. We also do these things we call tacorns. So they're little acorns, and you can win these things and collect these things, and you can get free tattoo time by anybody in the entire world. As long as that artist is willing to take you on, we'll pay for their tattoo.
Oh, that's cool.
So each one's worth $200, and if you get whatever 5 of them, you got $1,000 towards tattooing. We'll cover flight, hotel, tattoo time, all that stuff. So
That's cool.
it's just fun art stuff, and it just all ties into my little ecosystem.
Yeah.
Of tattoo shop, tattoo convention, and then art. So
I love that, man. It's pretty unique to a lot of the other projects I've heard people working on. It's fun. It sounds like something you can like easily get invested in. You're like, oh, tell me about this part of the story, that, like, and learn it. It kind of makes you feel like a kid.
Well, and if you like art and you like tattoos, then you're having fun playing the game.
Yeah.
But you're also in a position where you can win free tattoo time.
Yeah, yeah.
So we get people in there from various levels. Some people are tattoo collectors, and they're like, I want free tattoo time. Some people just love NFTs, so they're in there for the NFT stuff. Other people just enjoy the game of card chaos,
Right.
I think the best thing about what you guys are doing, like namely you and Frank too, is the quality of the artwork in these things is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the NFTs, especially that were being put out in the early, like during like the boom or whatever, was just terrible. Like the artwork was just really bad. You know what I mean? And they were going for whatever. Millions. You know what I mean? Millions. But like this is like, the artwork is next level, man.
Yeah, I think it started as the reverse. Like the businessmen came in, they're like, how do I get quick art?
Right.
And then that died for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And maybe now it's like reverse. Like the artists are kind of taking more hold of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that was the initial idea, is like digital art. not digital currency. They're like, we already have that.
Yeah.
But obviously they saw the money and they went for it. But I think a lot of it lacked utility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's cool to see that kind of that being corrected, let's say.
Yeah. Right. No, I mean, it kind of has to be because, like I said, NFT is like a swear word these days,
right? Because
it's associated with all the negativity that came with it. I mean, people lost millions of dollars, billions of dollars. I mean, the whole FTX situation, I don't know if you know about that, but FTX, and then you got Binance, and all these people were just ripping people off left and right, and people just lost tons of money. So they all have a bad taste in their mouth, which is unfortunate because there are obviously people like Frank and I and other people in there that are trying to do it the honest way. Yeah. The problem with doing it the honest way is you don't make any money. I mean, I would say my last drop, I think we made like $46,000. Yeah. But the amount of money that we had to like put into it was like $47,000. So it's like, you essentially like lose $1,000 after all said and done. So, but it's a passion project. My girlfriend always makes fun of me and says I run a bunch of nonprofits because I do a lot of stuff, but we're not making a ton of money.
And then because you also have the convention going.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned some utility with the NFTs. When did you start doing that?
So the convention that I'm running has been the convention I currently am running has been going on for 36 years. So it started in 1988. And it started with this guy named Grandpa Groovy, and then he ended up passing it off to this guy named Crazy Ace, and then they kind of took a little, I think it was 4-year break or something, and then this guy named Billy Eason took it over. And he ran it for 18 years, I think, and then after he ended up passing away, after he passed away, it was given to these guys, Nate Drew and CJ Starkey. They were out in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they were just struggling to maintain it because it was so far away. And so they ended up handing it off to me and this guy named Kenny Brown in 2016. So I've been running it with Kenny Brown since 2016. And then last year, 2022, Kenny passed away from a motorcycle accident. And then I kind of became the sole owner. So I've been bringing people in to collaborate. Last year I brought in JD Crow to collaborate. I don't know if you guys know about him, but he's a OG, Flash Designs. I don't know if you remember Official Tattoo Brand. I do. So he's his Flash was in every tattoo shop in the entire world at one point. So he came in, and his goal, the goal for having him involved was to bring the OGs into the convention and kind of hold down that side, because I feel like in order for this convention to be successful, it has to have that foot in history at all times. And then this year I've brought in Ryan Ashley. So Ryan Ashley is my co-host. And, obviously we're kind of like really trying to make sure we keep a foot in the progressive side. So it's really hard to kind of keep a foot in the traditional side and progressive side, because traditional people don't like progressive people. Progressive people don't like traditional people. But that's been the struggle. And that's that's been, as far as I'm concerned, my mission with this convention is always try to like pay respect to how we got to where we are, but also, continue to look forward. So we've actually built a timeline on the website. So if you go there, it's the whole entire history of the tattoo convention. We started using my NFT stuff involved in this at some capacity. So we have ranks based off of the eras that you have gone to the convention. Because when you go to a convention, you're like, oh, that person's been on Ink Master and they have X amount of followers and they're the HDIC or the HBIC. Well, and then you get the old guy who's in the corner and you're like, who the fuck is that? Yeah. So what I started doing is I started building a ranking system. So we have like these lanyards, and the lanyards state how many years you've been tattooing. That's cool. It's like 1 dot for every 5 years you've been tattooing. And then it also, that's like across the board. And then we also have a ranking system for how many eras you've supported the Richmond convention. So you get someone like, I don't know if you guys know Mike Skyver. Do you know him?
I don't think so.
Well, if you went to my convention, you would be like, holy shit, that's a fucking 4-star general.
Gotcha.
Because he's supported.
Dude, he's fucking ranked, bro.
Yeah, he's been tattooing for 55-ish years or so, 57. I don't remember. But it's, a long time. And then he's been at every tattoo convention, every era of the Richmond convention. Wow. So he's got the most ranks out of anyone who attends the convention. And so the goal has been, okay, I see this old dude that looks like a wizard. Who the fuck is he? And then you look at his rank, you're like, this motherfucker's been around.
Right.
You know, and you give him a little bit of respect.
Yes.
You know, and so that's been trying to balance it out a little bit. It's like we all know that Ryan Ashley is fucking King Dingling in the fucking tattoo world based off of her reputation. But, you know, you stick her next to a fucking 4-star general and you're like, oh yeah, that's a very, that's a great lieutenant. You know, very well-adjusted lieutenant. But so yeah, that has been my goal to balance that out a little bit.
That's cool because we see that being lost.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
Like everywhere, for different reasons and whatever. And I think that's really cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I think with the digital era, it's easy to lose sight of the past because everything's just moving so fast. You know what I mean?
And it just moves faster.
Yeah. I mean,
a lot of times if you don't get with at least some of the trends, it can feel like you're getting left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you should, it's very important to kind of keep track and honor like the past, the things that came before, the reason why we do what we do, you know what I mean? Like how we got to where we are and, how tattooing has evolved from where it started to now. But like, those old techniques, that stuff still applies, you know what I mean? Especially in the application of a good tattoo. Like, lines are lines, saturation, you got to know that shit, you know what I mean? And, to know where it came from and be able to see those OGs. Like I remember going to conventions and seeing guys like Philadelphia Eddie or, you know what I mean? Whoever, just any of those OGs that would just kind of be there, you know what I mean? Maybe, putting their a Lyle Tuttle or whatever, you know what I mean, and get like their signature on them, and then dudes were getting it tattooed and stuff like that. Like I always liked that, and I always liked talking to those dudes because they had like the old like acetate stencils and all that shit, and you're just like looking at a piece of history, like you're just looking at like, oh man, this is how people used to do that shit, you know what I mean? And now it's
we're standing on those shoulders.
Yeah,
like we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for that.
Absolutely.
And it's hard because when I was working with Crow, there was a lot of things that he knew that I didn't know, and he was frustrated that I didn't know those things. And I'm like, man, when I got in the tattoo world, I was looking forward. I wasn't looking back at all.
Right, yeah.
I got in, I was looking forward. It was like new school. I want to do all the newest things, new. And then as you get older, you start saying, okay, now you can kind of respect both sides at some capacity. I feel like I'm like right in the middle now at some capacity where I respect the old school because I'm quasi part of it at this point. And then I also have always had a progressive mind, so I'm always looking forward to say, okay, what's new, what's coming up. And it's going to happen to all of us. Eventually we're all going to be old school and we're all going to be has-beens at some capacity, and being able to like have respect from the new people coming up, I feel like is something that we would all want to have at some capacity.
Hell yeah, man. That's amazing.
No, I think you bring a good point because it is, important to look ahead and like what's coming and what do I have to adapt to. I mean, you've seen all kinds of changes in your career. I can think of the ones that I've seen, and you've at least doubled that, and adapting and staying relevant and new tool, and still like at the top of the game. So I have huge respect for that. With, you talked about your convention and like, having that displayed as maybe more the traditional side. What do you got going on the progressive side?
So I would say, from my perspective, the progressive side right now would be like the Ink Master side of things. So
right.
back when we started tattooing, if you were in the magazines, you were a fucking celebrity.
Yeah.
I remember Paul Booth tattooing at the Richmond convention, and he had 5 layers of humans trying to watch him tattoo.
Right.
It was insane. Like he was the celebrity. He was tattooing celebrities. Like him and Guy Aitchison were probably like the most famous tattoo artists in the world at the time. And so now I feel like, magazines have shifted into TV. So if you're on TV or you're an influencer of sorts or whatever, that is your claim to fame as far as, getting your recognition for what you're doing. So to me, right now, I feel like that I am bringing the best of the best in the tattoo world, not only on the Ink Master side. I mean, we've got James Tex coming this year, which I think is, I think he's phenomenal. We've got Curtis Burgess coming this year. We've got Dave So all these guys, they haven't been on TV, but they obviously have earned their stripes artistically. So my goal has always been to like find the best tattoo artists in the tattoo world, including Ink Masters, because I feel like a lot of people look at Ink Masters and like, oh, Ink Masters, no. I mean, dude, half the people I know from Ink Master tattoo circles around the people that are hating on them. Yeah. I mean, Ryan is a phenomenal tattoo artist. DJ Tamby is a phenomenal tattoo artist. Josh Payne is a phenomenal tattoo artist. I mean, these guys are amazing. Kelly is awesome. You know, like there's so many great tattoo artists that have been on TV, and I feel like as soon as they go on TV, it's like a band, you know, and everybody's like, oh man, I love this band. It's underground. As soon as it goes mainstream, everybody's like, fuck that band.
Sold out.
It's sold out.
It's on
like,
the radio now. Yeah.
And I feel like with selling out, I mean, it was a struggle for me to go on season 2. Like I really had this thing in my head because, like I said, I was already relatively well known in the tattoo industry at the time, and I was like, man, as soon as I go on this show, I'm going to be a sellout, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that convinced me to move forward was 2 things. One, if I don't do it, I'm going to always wonder what would have happened if I had done it. If I do it and I fail, at least I know I tried. But the other thing was that, to me, selling out is doing something other than what you love to do to make money, and and watering down your product to get something more, right? And so, I don't know if you ended up watching the show or whatever, but I did what I do on the TV show. I was who I am on the TV show. And so I don't feel like I sold out. I feel like I used a platform to amplify what it is I am. And, some people go on there and they completely like sell out per se. And typically they're not the ones that do as well as the other ones. A lot of the artists that go on that show and the people that are very talented, they typically stick to their guns at some capacity. But the show really does try to pull you away from that. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess that's always the battle, and I think in almost like all the versions of displaying yourself, right? Like you talked about earlier this morning, like putting your face alongside the artwork or in front of the artwork. It's tricky, and the word sell out and things like that get brought up often, in that kind of realm. But I mean, I agree. I think that if you can kind of go into it, staying as authentic as possible, like you're not compromising your morals, like you're kind of like, this is who I am. Like, even if you don't like it, I think you're on a good foot with that approach.
Sure.
And maybe more importantly, like after you do it and you're like, yeah, no, that's who I was, like whatever the reaction was, it's better than like, shit, I went in there fake and like it didn't work out, or even if it did, but I'm not that person. So what, now I have to uphold that image, forever. Like, I don't want to be in that place,
But then, on the other side of that, I've seen a lot of people go on that show and do really, really well because they had this like persona or whatever.
Yeah.
Emily Allegato, I don't think she's as bad as she looked on TV. I've met her in person. And then, there's been other people on there that just went in as the bad guy. But then in real life, you're like, they're not bad people. It was a persona that they put on and they were playing the game.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I think in the end, as long as you go on there with the right intentions, you're going to stand to benefit.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I still see, like, friends, going on or even thinking about doing it or other TV shows, and then there's like, should I not? And, I mean, you said it. You're like, I'd rather go on than, like, wonder what if,
Yeah, there's lots of people. I mean, I think Frank was one, Tanane's one, people who had opportunities to potentially be on that show, and then they didn't get on the show or decided not to. I think Tanane was one where he actually said no. I don't know if he actually made it to the end, but he said no, and I can imagine he's probably kicking himself in some capacity.
Yeah, I think they reached out to Frank one time, and they had like a kind of like a Zoom call before Zoom, whatever it was. But it was like a video interview or whatever. And Frank, being Frank, he wanted to change the show.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
He was like, no,
That's some
we
ideas.
want to do it this way.
Oh,
you know
my
what
God.
I mean? And so that never panned out.
Dude,
I
having
got a
Frank
couple,
at my convention, it's like, yeah, why are you putting the booth like this? I'm like, motherfucker, leave me alone, dude. Just set up your fucking booth.
Yeah, man. I actually got a couple emails from the Ink Master people. I think one time I actually asked you about it, and you were just like, just fucking do it, man.
Yeah.
Just fucking do it. And I never did. And I'm in that category now about wondering what if. You know
Dude,
what I mean?
Kelly and I had like a hour and a half conversation, which is the longest conversation we've ever had prior to her being on that show.
Yeah.
And I was just like, listen, just get on there and be yourself.
Yeah.
Because here's the other thing I've seen on that, and a couple of my friends have done, is they'll try to get you to say certain things that just aren't you.
Yeah.
And what happens is you say those things, and then you either one, reap the benefits, or two, reap the consequences. And it's like, from my perspective, I think that show is like, I shouldn't say mildly. There's a direction they expect it to go. Mm-hmm. There's people that they expect to win, and they will shift and manipulate the situation to get that to happen. Right. And so if you are an asshole, you're probably still going to get kicked off, or you're probably still going to win no matter what. So it's like, just be yourself. That way when you walk away, you can't. Because one of my friends, he got on there, and they were like, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? And he was like, oh, I think she's cool. And then they were like, well, don't you think she's kind of a shady bitch because of this? And he's like, no, I don't. And like, well, I think you should say that. And he's like, and then I remember he had said something. He's like, I wonder if I should say she's a shady bitch. I'm like, dude, don't do it. Yeah, and he did. And he still fucking lost. And I'm like, you just said some shit that you didn't agree with. Yeah. And now you lost. So now you got a double whammy. You know, now you're a fucking dickhead and you lost. Yeah.
I was just playing.
Yeah.
Just playing.
Jesse, was it ever like discouraging when they were like, oh, you're doing sick work, but it's more the same? I feel like that's something I always heard them say about your pieces. I mean,
it was when you're watching it from the outside, it probably looks like that. On the inside, it's like, hey, this person says, I want this thing. Do it, and then I draw the way I draw, and that's what came out. What do you want me to go trace something? And that was kind of the crazy thing. When I first went on, and they were like, all right, today we're gonna do this, and then all of a sudden we're out to draw our stuff. Everybody in there was like tracing shit off of Google. It was like, I want a monkey ripping out of the skin, and someone would like trace a monkey, trace a skin rip from Dan Hazelton, and then and then tattoo it. And I'm like sitting there like all night
sketching
drawing and trying to like create this thing, and I got stories and all this shit. And then you get up there and like, you win with your monkey skin rip. What the fuck is that? Like fucking one trick pony. And we all know, we all know that that would never happen in our world. In our world, you give respect to the people who are putting the energy in. You give less respect to the people who aren't putting it in. And so when they were saying this, I'm just like, whatever, I mean, it's Scott Olive and Chris Nunez. It's like, I like the guys and I respect them, but the fact of the matter is that's not what they do.
Right.
I mean, I remember when we had the new school competition, they were like, yeah, man, new school, you can just do whatever you want. And I'm like, no, you can't. Really. You can't just do whatever you want, and that's what they would always say about my style. They're like, oh, yeah, you could just, say
the
whatever.
rules and all that,
yeah,
right?
just do whatever you want. Nobody can coin it. And it's like, come on, there's rules. There's things. You can tell the difference between someone who's been doing it for a while and someone who hasn't, because they understand.
Composition still has to be on point. You still have to, consider light sources.
Colors. Everything. So, I never really took it to heart. I knew it was a TV show, and I knew the point was to just kind of stir stuff up. So
yeah, and then you have the convention coming up, right?
Yeah, the convention's coming up in October. It's October 18th through the 20th, and we've got like I said, we had James Tex, we got Ryan Ashley, DJ Tamby, Clean Rock, just a really great lineup of artists from all over the world. And we're doing seminars and portfolio reviews. We got Deanna. I know you're friends with Deanna.
Yeah.
So we got Deanna's coming, so I'm really excited for her. She's just a great teacher. Yeah. She's already sold out 2 seminars at my convention, which is crazy. Lots of fun stuff. I mean, I do a kids tattoo competition every year.
What's that?
So basically, we have like we call it the Tiny Tat Shack. Is my buddy Kenny Brown came up with it, and so now I call it Kenny Brown's Tiny Tat Shack.
Yeah.
Basically, you bring your parents there, and the kids draw on their parents,
Cool.
siblings or whatever, and then we compete.
Stop moving.
Stop moving, you pussy. So yeah, we do that. So that's really fun. So we got this whole little like kids area. We do this thing I do every year, which I absolutely love. This is one of my favorite parts of the convention is live art for charity.
Yeah.
And basically we have these 3 foot by 3 foot panels, and we put stretch canvas over them. And then we have like this year, I think we're going to have 16 artists, and they're all painting them live throughout the weekend. And then we auction them off at the end of the weekend or the end of the next week. We give the money to charity. So this year we're doing Hope vs. Cancer. Yeah. You guys know Tattoo Zoo? Yeah. So it's Tattoo Zoo's kind of like side charity. So we're doing that this year. Last year we did the SPCA. But it's cool because I'm bringing out like these really awesome artists outside of the tattoo world. So we've had Esau Andrews out there this year. Almost every year I've thrown it. We've had OG Abel. You guys know who he is? Yeah. I mean, he's such a sweet guy. But OG Abel's out there. Dave Koenig's going to be painting this year. Obviously he's the doing both, but just lots of artists that I normally wouldn't have a reason to invite to the convention. I can invite them now to be involved in this. And the fun thing is a lot of these artists have been painting almost the entire time that I've owned the convention. So it's been really nice to kind of like just have this little family that reunites every year. Yeah. The same people, and it's in a hotel, so it's like everybody gets to meet everybody. A very small amount of booths. I think total we got about 175 artists, and the ratio is pretty substantial. So like, you go to let's just say Philadelphia. You go to Philadelphia. Let's just say they have 1,000 booths, 2,000 artists, and then they get 30,000 people through the door. So you're looking at what is that, 1 in 15, something. Whatever that ratio is. My math ain't great here, but our ratio I think is pretty substantial. It's like each artist is getting more people through the door. We've got more people through the door to balance that out. So you're just, you bring merchandise, you're pretty likely to sell a lot of that. And just giving more. It sucks for the attendees because the attendees can't get tattooed.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. But we've also done this thing, and it's been controversial, but when I started, we started a free tattoo booth. Okay. And it's basically, we did it glory hole style.
You just stick your arm in
there, and you get whatever we want to give you.
That's kind of cool.
It's always been some little bangers.
That's not an arm.
But yeah, so that's been, and that's where you have the issue with the traditional side versus the contemporary. I'm like, oh, we got this cool new idea, and the traditional guys are, you're making a mockery of the tattoo world.
What are we, a fucking joke?
What are we, a sideshow? And I'm like, well, you guys used to tattoo at Coney Islands. Yeah.
Can you do walk-up tattoos? Will you see that? Or most everyone will be booked out?
There'll be people there doing walk-up, but nice. because of that, we start off with the glory hole tattoo situation. Yeah. And the funny thing is, so obviously we're catching controversy from the traditional side, but also if you want to solicit like legit sponsors, they're not sponsoring things that have glory hole tattoo situations in them. Yeah. And I remember I was on the news live, and I was like, yeah, we got a glory hole tattoo booth, and everybody's like looking at me snickering, and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot. Oh yeah, I can't say shit.
It's highly professional.
Yeah.
It's the most professional glory hole.
Right. So we've actually
we're also donating to charity.
Kids tattoo competition.
Low for the
kids tattoo booth right next to the glory hole.
It's a family
friendly. So anyways, we've shifted that into 2 booths. So we're doing a get what you get booth, which is essentially like the glory hole tattoo, but we changed it to get what you get. And then we have a get what you hit booth, which is essentially you got a big old target and you've got the Nerf guns with the suction cups. Nice. Whatever you hit, you get, and you pay for each shot. And then the glory hole one, we've actually shifted into this like kind of like a dice rolling situation. You can stick your arm in the hole and get whatever you want for free. Or if you want to kind of control the direction of what you get, you can roll dice. So they're like 6 sections. If you roll a 6, you get in the six quadrant or whatever quadrant. And then you can roll another dice.
Flash pieces up there and stuff.
Yeah, and then you can get tighter into that area. So like that way you're not as it's not you're not getting a fucking wiener tattooed, whatever.
Have you ever had someone upset with the glory hole ones?
I haven't heard of anything. I mean, everybody absolutely loves it. Anyone who's sticking their arm in a hole cannot be upset.
They're
cool. I mean,
you know what you're signing up for there.
And it's free. I mean, you know, it's like...
Can you be like, stay away from my hand?
Yeah.
Or my fingers?
We typically will do it. You know, we'll let them kind of pick where they want it on the arm.
Who works the glory hole, though? Like, who's the artist behind the
I mean, it's
the
usually
hole?
like Ryan Ashley and DJ Tam.
No shit.
No. You know, it's usually
some homeless dude hanging out outside the shop.
I mean, using your old machine.
Right.
Old one-eyed Willie back there.
There's nobody in the tattoo booth that I don't think can at least put it
off.
down some solid line work.
Yeah, all right.
So,
Fair enough.
So we haven't had any complaints thus far. But yeah, it just gives other people. We put it in the VIP tickets. So if you get a VIP ticket, then you get a free, get what you get opportunity or get what you hit opportunity. Which is another thing that I think we're doing this year that's a little bit different is we're actually selling a bunch of different VIP tickets. The biggest one is $750, but it gets you a bunch of merch, gets you the weekend pass, gets you the get what it hit stuff, and then it also gets you a couple of nights hotel room. So it's like anyone who's like a real collector who's like, I want to be there for the whole weekend, I want to experience it whole. They can just pay that $750, and then we take care of everything. We get food and beverage tokens. That's cool. Yeah. So it's something, we're always trying to try to figure out ways of redoing a tattoo convention because obviously there's a ton of them. Mm-hmm. So we want to figure out ways that we can make it different. Why is someone going to come to our convention when there's 7 other ones that are happening in the same state
at the same time?
At the same time, yeah. I mean, we literally have one convention that's happening in Richmond 2 weeks prior, and then we have one convention that's happening 2 hours away the same exact weekend. Wow. So it's like, we have to have a reason for people to come to us other than these other ones. Right. But the other one's an anime convention, so it's not really like direct competition, but there's overlap there.
Yeah, people have to make a choice, right? Like, do I go to this one?
Well, the anime one's 2 weeks prior, so we're actually doing the anime one too. So we'll do the anime one, and then 2 weeks later, they do the Richmond convention. So,
and you guys have been there the longest, right?
Yeah,
so you've seen all these conventions pop up.
Yeah, so when we started, I'm trying to think. The one that's in Norfolk just started this year. Anime Inc. I think started right before the pandemic. And then I'm trying to think what else we got. There's some Virginia Beach ones, some Hampton Roads. So yeah, we're the oldest. I mean, we're one of the oldest tattoo conventions in the entire world.
Yeah, yeah.
But definitely in Virginia.
And then as you've seen these new ones pop up, have they communicated at all or tried to respectfully go on in the same?
No.
Is that a thing? Or?
I mean, as frustrating as it is, when I first opened my tattoo shop, I had some issues with some of the guys in my shop, and they left, and they basically opened up right across the street. Sick. And that was probably the most painful thing that could happen to me. And past that point, I was angry for a while, and then I just kind of got to this space. I'm like, listen, this isn't doing me any good.
Yeah.
This is a free market. Anybody can open up and do business anywhere. And if someone's doing business down the street, across the street, in the same city, whatever, there's nothing you can do about it. You can go and you can throw a bunch of shit all over the place and look like a dickhead, or you could just sit back and focus on what you're doing and try to do the best you can. So that's the route I've decided to roll. The one that's happening 2 weeks before me, I wasn't happy that the last year they threw it on the same weekend as me. So I wasn't happy about that, but I contacted them and I just said, hey, I don't know in Richmond, you guys can do whatever you want, but I think it would benefit both of us if you guys can move it to the other side of the year. But that's all I can do, and at this point, the lady who runs that, her name's Kim. She runs a great tattoo shop called Black Rabbit. I think she's a really good person. And so, her and I are friends at some capacity. And, she's allowing me to work at her convention so I can promote my convention and vice versa. So to me, that feels better than just this nasty, cutthroat, you're stepping on my territory, you must die.
Right.
So
No, I agree. And that's cool to hear because not everyone's there yet, let's say. Maybe.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I constantly have to push down those negative feelings and they pop up and you're just like, this doesn't benefit me, man. Yeah. So, and it's like after you've been been doing what you're doing for so long, you've seen it so many times. I mean, how many tattoo shops do you guys know where people have left and opened up right down the street, or even just left in a group and gone and done something else?
Yeah.
It's like when you're in a tattoo shop and you're working there, you don't really I worked at 14 tattoo shops before I opened my own shop. Yeah. And I never thought about the boss and how what I was doing was affecting the boss. It was like, oh yeah, I am on Jesse's journey and I'm going to go do this other thing.
Right.
You don't realize that guy was making, he had 4 artists and you just took away 25% of his income. Yeah. You don't think about those things. So I always tell every artist now, like, if you're going to leave a shop, communicate that as soon as you start thinking about it. Yeah. And everybody's like, oh man, well, what if they fire me? It's like, how hard is it for you to get into another shop tomorrow? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, anybody will hire you. So I was like, just tell your boss as soon as you find out that you want to go, or as soon as you start having that thought, hey, I'm looking, to move in a different direction, whatever. Thank you for whatever. And then give them an opportunity to either fire you or keep you there. And hopefully we can start bending this tattoo world into a more mature environment where people are like communicating what it is their intentions are without, doing everything behind people's backs.
Yeah, I think that's just basic etiquette with any job, right? Like, I mean, most jobs you give a 2-week notice at least if you're going to be leaving or something like that. I've always, even at shops where, maybe the relationship with the owner wasn't great, I've always kind of had that kind of courtesy, like, hey, we're going to be leaving, so, I'll be here for another 2 weeks and stuff, and, give you a chance to replace me or whatever, but
I'll also say this: 2 weeks is not enough.
No, well, I mean, like standard practice.
It is better than nothing.
But
it's
better than nothing. But 2 weeks, it's like, fuck, dude. Like,
right.
When I was quitting back in the days, there was only one shop I quit overnight, and it was because my girlfriend and I broke up. I was actually in Florida. I was at the Panhandle up in Fort Walton Beach, and my girlfriend that I had been with for like 4 years. The only reason I was down there was because of her. She broke up with me and broke my heart, and I was like, I'm out of here. And I left, pack up my shit. And, of course, I wasn't thinking about the boss at all. I was just like, my heart's broken. I got to get out of here. But, every time, all the times outside of that, it's always been like, I think I'm going to move to, I'm going to go tattoo in England for a couple months or something like that. And then I would just leave and go tattoo in England. But it was always like, hey, they usually had at least a couple months before I was leaving. Yeah. And I never got fired from any of those shops when I told them that I was leaving. I think that gave them an opportunity to have a backup plan. Mm-hmm. I think that it would be best if people started kind of communicating a little bit more. And let the boss be the dickhead, not you.
Right.
Sure.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, every time I've communicated, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about my own experience. Usually it goes well.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're in a shop with 20, 30 artists, they'll be like, fuck off, whatever. Yeah. But most of the time, I think people want to work with you. Right? Yeah. They're like, oh, thanks for the heads up. Let's do this. Let's figure it out. Now people can plan. And there are a lot of parts of the tattoo world that I do see becoming more like other jobs, let's say. Yeah. Where back in the day it was almost separate, it's tattooing's different. It's not like a normal job, and providing that structure, let's communicate. We don't have to do the old you open a shop down the street, we burn it down type shit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the more as tattooing has evolved and the more professional it's gotten, it's not so much an outlaw thing anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I know a lot of the things that were put into place at Into the Woods were kind of came from you in a way, whenever we had certain issues or whatever, a lot of issues can be solved with paperwork. You know what I mean? So we started doing
paperwork.
But we started doing things the consultation forms for clients, or the one thing that I thought was genius was we started doing a form to have people fill out if they want to get a tattoo that you're advising them against. You know what I mean? This is not a good idea. We're trying to steer you in a better direction. Basically. We're trying to steer you in a better direction. And if you're going against it at all, you know what I mean? We'll just have you fill this out saying that we informed you of the risks or
Right.
or whatever, and you chose to do it anyway. Sign here. You know what I mean? That way you can't come back 2 weeks later like, oh, it faded
You
because
told me
I
a couple
put it on.
stories about using that form.
Yeah. I mean, people always want to get a little something here, and it's like, dude, it's going to be halfway gone
Right.
at some point. You know what I mean? They want to do it anyway. So you haven't
learn
filled
how to
out the
tattoo
little-
better, man.
Shit. It's been my fault the whole time. Fuck.
Yeah.
Remember back in the days when someone's tattoo didn't heal up? You're like, what'd you use?
What'd you
on
do?
it? Like, I used A&D. Well, you're not supposed to use
No,
A&D.
don't use that.
Right.
They'd be like, what'd you do? I didn't use anything. Should have used A&D. What the fuck's wrong with you?
It's always their fault.
It's always their fault.
Earlier we were talking with the convention. You said this is something you work on the whole year.
Yeah.
It's not like I work on it a couple months and then we pop it up. I think you even said you had full-time staff for it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Last year was a shit show. Like last year, the one thing I've learned about conventions is the two things that are most important is making sure your registration is held on tight and your volunteers are tightened up because you cannot throw a convention with 3 people in real time. So last year we completely shit the bed and our volunteers were all fucked. So it was like people were working twice as hard as they had to. So immediately, right after the convention, I created a full-on plan on how to handle the volunteers, where they needed to be, how many we needed, how we would get the information to them on how they're going to do their job, et cetera, et cetera. So, while it's fresh in my mind right after the convention, I'm already creating systems and different spreadsheets and stuff and restructuring the business based off of the mistakes we made. It's a steady, it's a marathon. It's not something you just throw in 3 months. Some people do. And when I first took over the convention, they gave me they let me know I was taking over the convention 5 months before it was supposed to be thrown. It took me 2 months just to get the structure in place to actually throw the convention. I mean, we're getting a marketing plan together, all this stuff. And it was crazy. I mean, I was literally I remember my girl and I were working on it, and I would we'd both be sitting at the dining room table working. I'd look up, it'd be light. I'd look up, it'd be dark. And then I'd go to bed. She'd stay up. I'd wake up. She'd go to bed. I mean, it was just as long as you could work, we would work to get this convention going. And it's just super painful. It gets very painful. No matter how much you prepare for a tattoo convention, the 2 months leading up to it are super painful. I mean, everyone, as soon as the artists start waking up and they're like, okay, I got a convention coming up, boom, your emails are going off, your freaking Instagram DMs are going off, your phone's going off, and you're like, yeah, dude, the application is in the fucking email. We just sent it to you. It's like no matter how much you prepare, you're going to get a slew of people coming in to try to get information out of you all at the same time.
A bunch of last-minute people trying to get into.
Well, yeah, I mean, not so much that, because we actually sold out this year in 3 days, which is pretty awesome. But the way it works is, everyone at the end is trying to figure out what hotel they're going to stay at, what their booth is, and then you've got all your employees where you got to say, okay, you're going to be working this station, you're going to be working this station. This is how the POS system works. This is what happens in all the scenarios that might happen, because when you've got thousands of people that are coming through the door, one scenario will gum up that line and it'll screw everything. And meanwhile, I'm on the other side of the convention trying to figure out this, that, or whatever. They're having to call me over here to figure out this problem. So as much as that you can offload within the months leading up to those 2 months, the easier your life will be. So, and like I said, I made it like the mouse game where you would mousetrap, where you build the entire thing because you're building it the entire year, and then you get those 3 days to see if it works. Yeah. And then whatever doesn't work, you have to write it down and try to fix that from happening next time. So it's like, when you're running a tattoo shop or any other business, you've got your day-to-day where you can kind of track and move and guide. Whereas here it's like, oh, we're going to try this glory hole thing. Hopefully people will do it.
Don't worry, I'll tell them on the news.
Right, yeah. But this year, we've got all these new things that we're doing. We're doing portfolio reviews this year.
Yes.
And this is something that they do at Comic-Cons and stuff like that.
Right.
As far as I know, it's never been done in a tattoo convention. So we're trying to kind of nurture our community into understanding what the value of a portfolio review is. But then at the same time, I have to, get the artists on board, because the artists are like, well, what do we do? How do we set this up? Where do I sit? All this stuff. So it's a lot of anytime you bring something new in, you have to essentially teach people how these new things work. And you don't really know because you've never done it before either. So,
Is this the first year you're doing the portfolio review?
yeah, we've got 16 artists doing portfolio reviews of this one.
Is that like in a separate room, or is it like on a stage, like a panel or
It's
something?
they're gonna be individual portfolio reviews. So like, let's say you get one with DJ Tammy. Well, DJ, depending on what time he wants to do it, if we have a room available, you guys can go into a room together. And there's no specific time. I'll let the artists pick their times, and then the people who are getting the reviews have to fall into those times. Okay. But essentially, like, it just depends on what's going on at the time. I mean, we've got a really small hotel with very limited space, so some of them may take place at their booth, and some of them may take place in a boardroom or in a classroom setting. It just depends on how many people are trying to do things at those specific times. So
That's cool. I love that. Yeah. I think it's so cool that you're adding new things.
Yeah.
Trying to. It's not fun. I mean, I've learned that if I build a business to its maximum capacity, what I can visualize out of it, it's no longer fun for me. Like I'll be like, all right, that project's done.
Yes.
X to the next, And so like the goal for me is to every year bring new things to the tattoo convention world. Yeah. Some of them aren't going to work. Some of them are. Some people don't want to stick their hand in a hole.
Right.
A lot do.
Yeah. And then I heard you say sold out. Does that mean just the booths? Like people can still buy tickets and attend?
Yeah. So yeah, the way we do the booths is we do invitation only.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we essentially let artists submit to be a part of the convention. And the crazy thing is we got some amazing artists that are on a waiting list right now that I would absolutely love to get in the convention, but I can't. Right. So what I do is I hit up all the artists from the year prior, and I basically say, hey, if you'd like to come back, let me know within the next 2 weeks. We need to get you got to fill out your application, all that stuff. And then whatever space we have left over, then we hit up the wait list. Yeah. And this year it was like we basically hit up the wait list, and it was just like that. It was done. So it was very quick. I mean, I think we sold out in, April 1st was when when we ended the applications, and we were done by April 4th or something. But the other thing,
cool, we did that.
done. I mean, that's like off your head, off your brain. And then the other thing that we're doing this year that I'm actually excited about is we're doing a tiered entry. So basically, or a time entry. So you can buy a ticket for noon. You can buy a ticket for 1, 2, 3, 4, but we only allow a certain amount of people through the door at certain times.
Smart.
So we've
For
already
visitors.
For attendees, yeah.
Attendees.
So we've already sold out for all the first hour of all 3 days. And then we're probably about at least halfway sold out of the Saturday second hour. Yeah. And the reason why we do that is because, once again, the hotel's capacity is like 1,500 people at one time. And usually the way the convention works is we get all 1,500 people through the door at the very beginning, and then people just keep trickling in. So this year we're just kind of like staggering that out so that it's a steady flow throughout the entire convention instead of like just balls to the wall for like 2 hours and then everybody dissipates. And then we just got a lot of parking issues. So we've got a hotel parking lot that fills up real quick. We have to like rent parking spaces all around the convention for people to be able to park closer to the convention. And then we have to man that because we have to make sure that that people aren't parking in places they're not supposed to, in businesses they're not supposed to, because then they complain and then they get mad at us. So it's a big ordeal. Just the parking is a big ordeal. So
and then people can still purchase tickets and time slots now, correct?
Yeah. So we're for example, Saturday we open at noon. Yeah. The noon to 1 o'clock is sold out. We still have 1 to 2 available. You can even buy 3 to 4 or whatever if you're planning on coming later. But then once those 2 to 3s sell out or 1 to 2 sell out, then no one can buy past that point.
And where do you go to get tickets?
You can go to richmondtattooconvention.com, and everything's there. All the information that I've talked about here is there. Portfolio reviews, seminars, all the entertainment that's going to be there is there, and then all the ticket opportunities. Oh, and we're doing free tickets for all military. Cool. All military can get in for free on Friday and Sunday. All licensed tattoo artists in Virginia can get in free, and all senior citizens can get in free.
Nice.
So we're just trying to build the community. As time goes on, I'm going to start extending that licensed tattoo artist thing to other states. The problem is just teaching the front how to verify that they're licensed. so that we're not letting people in that just Photoshop something, you know. So right now we can verify, military, we can verify, but I would like to get to a point where we're doing like first responders, just really kind of like nurturing that community and letting the people in who are supporting us at some capacity, day to day on what they're doing. So
Yeah, that's sick, dude.
yeah, thanks, man.
We'll have to check it out.
Absolutely.
That's right.
What's the age limit for senior citizens?
What's that?
What's the age for senior citizens?
I think it's 65. Or is it 55? I don't know.
Almost there.
Obviously,
You hear that, Joe?
Joe gets in free twice.
What kind of ranking is Joe there? Is he wizard yet?
I'm a fucking private still.
Grow that beard out a little bit. You what? You're going on 30 years now. Right?
Yeah. 96. So
Yeah, that's good, man.
28
So you get a bunch of those dots.
yeah.
You won't have any of the bottom dots though.
I got to get my first one.
You got to get your first one. I'm telling you, man, this convention is one of the best in the world, and it's just a different experience. Anybody that goes to it will tell you that.
It's crazy, man, because I've been wanting to go for so long, but like, with the kids and stuff like that, just life just moves so fast.
Bring the
Before you know it,
kids.
years go by and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm coming.
Listen, my 4-year-old's going to be there.
Okay.
A bunch of my other friends, I'm like, bring your kids. All our kids can grow up together.
Hey, we're
and
taking
in
the kids
moment.
out of school to go do a
Yeah.
tattoo convention.
It's a weekend. They don't go to school on the weekend. What do you mean?
Ben Ochoa takes his family everywhere, man.
Yeah, I got to get with him on how he does that.
All 17 of them, man.
Who is
They
it?
do, yeah.
Ben Ochoa?
Oh, is he homeschool?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude,
I'm kind of jealous.
I think we talked about it a little bit
Bring your
earlier.
family
But
everywhere.
I do think that
Field
most of the
I think that's been the hardest thing for me about doing conventions is leaving the family at home and just going on my own and, trying to act like I'm not having the time of my life. Just be like, oh, babe, I miss you so
It was
much.
all
I miss
right.
the
I'm real
kids."
tired.
no Instagram
It's whatever.
posts. Or your Instagram posts are all about the bullshit that's happening.
Don't tag me in that.
It's miserable.
Not the fun times at the bar after the show lets out and everybody's.
Yeah, I saw that picture you were tagged in.
I'm looking forward to attending with Joe.
Awesome.
Right? At
Fuck yeah.
yeah.
Let's do that.
We'll check that out.
You guys are always welcome.
Really excited for you. Thank you so much for coming on here, man.
Yeah,
It's
thanks
been
for
a
having me,
blast
man.
talking.
Yeah, I've been a fan of what you guys do for a long time. Every time I see one of your videos, I watch it front to back at least once.
Thanks. Hell yeah.
Usually twice, but I love everything you guys do.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah, man.
And,
Always
and
good to see you, man.
yeah, and
ditto,
thanks,
bro.
Joe, again for joining.
Absolutely.
Until next time,